you are in the break of divorce, you want to give up. I'm not in your relationship. I don't know what is happening. But the question is, are you just emotional? Maybe you are jealous of the success of your wife or the success of your husband. Hi guys, welcome to His Kingdom United. I'm so happy to see you again. I hope you guys liked my content so far. I'm just trying to give as much as content possible. So today, basically, we started a series. Okay, the series is called Love, Dating, and Divorce. Okay, basically, I got inspired. I was looking for Samantha Lee, who is the former wife of Tyrese, Tyrese Gibson. He's a singer, he's an actor, he's rich, and he has contributed a lot with his skills and talent. So if you don't know who Tyrese is, just have a look real quick. Bam, that's his Tyrese. And so we're gonna talk about it. I found a clip. She was talking about her experiences in marriage and her experiences with divorce, and there's just a lot to cover, so we're gonna watch certain clips. So let's go to the clip. Pew.
So how did you know that divorce was the right option for you in your relationship?
So first off, what I want to say in general, we know that women file for divorce more often than not. I think a lot of times we do it out of hurt, out of anger, unforgiveness. And you covered this with Dr. Spirit, which shout out to you, sis. I love
Shout out to Dr. Spirit.
But it's a lot of unforgiveness, and that unforgiveness, if it's left unforgiven, turns into bitterness, and that bitterness can build a fence, and that fence becomes very hard to feel when you build that wall up. And I think that of course, I won't go into specifics about what happened or why it happened. But I will say that it's very important for you to seek wise counsel. I've had a therapist for a very long time. So I love loved ones, people that support you. You want to make sure that you are involving in that decision making. And you have to really decide and make a very calculated decision based upon your belief systems, based upon who you're speaking to, your wise counsel, like giving them the information and then making the best decision. I think that we do take divorce very casually, and I'll admit I probably looked at it a little less intensely as I should have. That's me looking back on it, because I would never tell. I work with women. I would never tell a woman to walk through that in the same frame of mind I was in when I did it.
And when you say that, but what frame of mind was that? What do you mean by that in particular?
I was very, very hurt. I was very angry. And I remember, like, when I made, like, the decision, I was, like, hysterically crying on the phone with my attorney. That was not the person I should have been on the phone with when, like, that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, I was hysterically crying. And I was not in any position to make that decision. I was extremely emotionally intoxicated. We can be intoxicated with our emotions. And I'm one, I'm very much emotionally led. I feel very strongly. I'm just that kind of person, very passionate. But I would never tell somebody to make that decision when they're that emotional. But of course, I wasn't talking to someone that genuinely would be for marriage, or for reconciliation. And that's not no slight to
No, it's
the
attorney.
current
The current
it's
friends.
not. Yeah, it has nothing. There's no slight to that. Not the friends, but I was on the phone with my attorney.
Yeah.
So it was something that was being said to me that hurt me at that time, and that so at that time when I was on the phone and I made that decision, I was livid. I was emotional. I was hysterical. And so if anything, if I could take anything from that and advise somebody else, because I don't want families to be torn apart.
Yeah.
It would be that if you're that hurt and you're like that emotional about someone, that's not a lack of love. Like the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. It's void of love, void of feelings. And so if I'm that emotional and I'm that hurt and I'm like on that level where I'm just like, I can't stop thinking and I'm just obsessing over why I am hurt. If it's misguided and misdirected, it can go in a bad direction. And so I think that with that being said, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And I made a decision like, well, I'm so angry, I'm so hurt, and this is, and I'm just like, forget it, like, never mind, like, I need to be done with this is horrible, just ruminating on all the negative things and not focused on any of the positive things. I posted a reel, and I mean this, I really mean this. There was a guy who was talking about that before he decided to marry his wife, he had said or had told his wife that he needed to choose the people that would speak to her in her most emotional moments. And it was people that would be for the relationship.
Right.
And I know a lot of people had different kind of like comments about the person and everything like that, but the message of what he was saying for me resounds true, because the people I had in my ear at the time were not for that.
Yeah, man, she was very decisive. Welcome back. So let me just start off with what the Bible is just saying in general, and you will see the scriptures. And I would say let's go together to Matthew's 19 from verse 3. The Pharisees came to Jesus, testing him, asking, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife just for any reason?" He replied, "Have you never read that he who creates them from the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this reason, he says, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined inseparably to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, so that they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate." What God has joined together, let no man do what? Separate. So we can see that. Let's stop here. We say we know that God is the one who joins us together. He puts us together with our spouses, right? Even though we have our free choice, we make our choices, but God is always involved in that decision process in some way or some form. He will try to help us and to lead us into the right direction. He says, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Okay, so God doesn't want separation. And secondly, he also says, let no man separate. So in other words, there should not be a third party involved in your marriage. No one else should be involved in your marriage to the extent that the person wants to separate you guys. Okay, so God doesn't want a third party involved in it. So when someone should come into your life, the agenda and the true love should always be towards the support of the marriage, always toward building the marriage up, always towards helping the marriage to succeed. Yeah. So he said, so there are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. No man should separate it. So he is talking about a union, something God respects, something God loves, something he wants us to live in, dwell in, and have happiness in. Okay, that is what the word of God says. He said, let no man separate. Not a judge should be able to separate the divorce, to separate you. Not your mother should not separate. Not your father should not separate. Not your sister should not separate. Not your friend. No one should help to separate the marriage. Okay, so now we have exceptions. There are exceptions. Now there are cases where, for instance, a man or a woman is in a very abusive relationship. Okay, if you are in a physical abusive relationship, then at that point separation is inevitable because it's abusive. If this abusive relationship is leading towards killing you, killing your family, leading towards destroying your whole life, at that point there is a time for separation needed for healing. But initially, in the eyes of God, you still married because you took that choice. God never force you to marry that person. You decide to marry. So God, in His view, you still married in the spiritual sense. Okay. Now, separation needs to happen if the relationship leads towards death. Number one. Number two, separation can happen, is allowed to happen if you have if you live in sexual immorality, meaning if you have an adulterous relationship, you have a partner, you have someone else there, and you are faithful, and your husband is now, or your wife is now sleeping with another man or woman, right? And this is also grounds for divorce, because now at that point you have not committed your marital commitment and you have been very unfaithful to the person, right? So now he goes on to say, so there are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. So no one should come into that divorce. No friend. Like I said, then the Pharisee said to him, why then did Moses command us to give her a certificate of divorce and send her away? He said to them, because your hearts were hard and stubborn, Moses permitted you to divorce your wife. But from the beginning, it was not being this way. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman, commits adultery. Right? So, and then he goes on to say, and then the disciple said to Jesus, if the relationship of a man with his wife is like this, it is better not to marry. But he said to them, not all men can accept this statement, but only those to whom the capacity to receive it has been given. For there are eunuchs who have been born that way from their mother's womb, making them incapable of consummating a marriage. And there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men for royal service. And there are eunuchs who have made themselves so for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to accept this, let him accept. So, boom. So he's talking about the ideas that, so marriage is there for procreation, yeah, to have kids, to have a family, to build a family. It's also there to have joy, to have sex, to enjoy it. And it is also there for you to grow as a man and as a woman, to become more matured in love, to understand the meaning of love, to operate in wisdom, to be challenged, to become a better person, right? So all these are fantastic reasons of why God has put us together and says, okay, you know what, you guys can marry, all right? Now, in the case of Samantha Lee, so what it was, she said that there was the first point I want to talk about, that she has another person involved in her decision making, and she was very emotional. So, which I fully understand. So, I am not really aware of what happens in the marriage. I also don't know if how many people were involved in that decision she took to make a divorce or take a divorce in regards to Tyrese, right? But she made one thing clear. One thing was, she said there was an attorney, which is a lawyer, who she was speaking to, who had not her best interest. Then on second case, she also said when she made this choice that she also had support from her family and friends. So you can see the Bible also says that don't let any man separate. So she also stated that she was talking to the wrong person, right? So the point I'm making is, who is talking to you? You are in the break of divorce. You want to give up, right? I'm not in your relationship. I don't know what is happening. But the question is, are you just emotional? That's number one. Maybe you are jealous. That's number two, of the success of your wife or the success of your husband. Maybe you are envious. Maybe your wife or your husband is not giving you too much time because of work, or maybe the wife or the husband is too occupied with kids or with friends. Or it could also be that you are going through some stuff which only God can help you if you're willing to submit yourself and try to use wise counsel. The other case is also an example that it could have been that you have not just lost your way, but it could have also been that maybe you have not really understood what is really going on in your life. So what I'm trying to say is, what is the reason for your divorce? I have no idea what the reasons are. But the question I'm trying to understand is, are those reasons really justified? Is there not something you can do to work on it? Is there not something you can do to push a little bit harder? To push a little bit more? To keep going and not to give up and say, I can do one more day? Maybe you are just focusing too much of the wrong of what the person is doing. Maybe your focus is too much on what he is not doing and what she is not doing. Can I suggest to you that maybe what you can do is start focusing, take a diary, take a journal, and every day just watch the person closely and then just write down, okay, today I've seen she has done this good. I've seen this. When you write it down, that you can actually make a mark and you note in your head, oh, she made this good, this was nice, maybe she was cooking good, maybe she was cleaning good, maybe he was cooking good, maybe he was cleaning good, maybe whatever it was, you can make notes to identify the positive points of what the person is actually about. Because sometimes we're too familiar with a person and then we forget actually how important the person is for our life, right? So God says he hates divorce and he doesn't want anybody to be involved in it, right? So counsel is important. It is important to understand who you're talking to. It is important to understand that not everybody has the best interest for you, because that's what Samantha Lee said. Okay, let's go to James. Okay, James 3 and 5. Let's start from verse number 2. He says, we all stumble and sin in many ways. So number one, you're in a relationship, you have to understand you are married, your husband, your wife will offend you. And you yourself, you will offend him or her. That's number two. You have to understand that he says, the Bible says, for we are stumble in many ways, stumble and sin in many ways. Yeah, so that stumbling, that offense, that whatever misunderstanding, that disrespect will happen. You have to come to terms with that. It will what happen. It will happen. But then the question is, how are you going to respond to the disrespect or not? Then furthermore, is the disrespect and this what you're going through, is it really justified? Maybe you are delusional. Maybe it is something you needed to do correctly, and maybe you're too arrogant. Maybe you're too prideful. Maybe you have too much. You think you're above everybody and you cannot listening to the request of your wife or request of your husband. It could be something very simple, right? Sometimes the situation is there's requests to be made and some of the requests are ridiculous. Sometimes we can just overlook certain things and we can say, you know what, like I'm not agreeing with, but you know, I'm just gonna do this. Or this one is, do I really need to fight over the dishes? Or do I really need to, you know, not clean up? Do you know what I'm saying? Do I really need to talk to him that way? Can I not use a little bit of wisdom? Can I not be a bit more wiser and a bit more understanding? These are all questions which we have in our heart, in our mind. And these are all things we can do to make things better for ourselves. But how many people do we know, or how many people do we have who actually has the desire to do those things? That's the question, right? Because the importance, what I've noticed, what people think is like marriage is for them only, but it's not for the institute of marriage. No one wants to support the institute of marriage. No one wants to support the union of marriage. No one wants to support the union of the relationship itself. The man is selfish, the woman is selfish, and both parties are not willing to submit and to understand, okay, let us seek peace, let us seek harmony, let us seek joy. Okay, so he says, for we all stumble and sin in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, never saying the wrong thing, he is a perfect man. So who can say a thing consistently, you without saying anything wrong? How's it possible? You will say something wrong eventually one day, one time. If not, you are a perfect man. If not, you're a perfect woman. So you can see that this understanding, this childishness needs to go away. There's a lot of childishness happening in our society that we want things and we don't want to take accountability and understand, okay, hold on, certain things will happen, certain things will, occur, and we need to resolve it in a more graceful, more strong, more fantastic manner, which will help us to grow. Okay, then he goes on to say, if anyone does not stumble in what he says, never saying the wrong thing, he is perfect, a perfect man, fully developed in character, without serious flaws, able to bridle his whole body and reign in his entire nature, taming his human faults and weaknesses. So he wants us to tame our human faults and weaknesses. But he says, if you can become perfect and not say anything wrong, that means you have developed in character without serious flaws. So the question is, when you say certain things, when you offend your man, husband, or whatever, the question is, have you fully developed in character? Because character is the reason why the relationship most of the time is not working, because your character stinks. Your character is not nice. You know that. You know it's not nice. Oh, it's not nice. The character is not good enough. Character. And we're not speaking a lot about character, because character is that what makes the marriage stand and succeed, right? It is the character. So if a person is sexual immoral and he goes in his relationship, he has no commitment to the marriage itself, his character, he has not a strong character, because his thing is about, I need to get my own sexual desire and I can't be faithful. That means you don't have a good character. That means you're not suitable for marriage. If you know you're not a faithful person, get that one and check. Become faithful. If you know you're a person who lies, make sure you become an honest person. Make sure that this lying thing about you will stop, that you can maintain the marriage. If you know that you keep complaining and keep running away, then you know you need to fix that. Because if you can't fix it, that will you will bring those things into the marriage, right? If you know you're sexually perverted and you want all kinds of freaky stuff, and you have to fix it. Because what you will do, you will use that perversion and try to convince your man and convince your wife to go along with it. And even though it's not something which will benefit the relationship in the first place, then you're the only one who's like enjoying it, but your partner's not enjoying it. And for what cause? Right? It's there for harmony. Right? So you have to get things in check. If you know you're not ready, leave the young girls alone. If you're not ready, leave the man alone. Leave them alone. If you're not willing to work on your character, you're not willing to do anything, or all you have in your mind is, I just want to be loved, and it's all about feeling, leave them alone. You're not mature, you're kids. Leave them alone. Why do I say leave them alone? Because what we do nowadays is everybody has a heartbreak, everybody is emotionally traumatized because of somebody or like instability, and we act as if that this function is function. You know, a lot of people, they are dysfunctional. They cannot function because they are wrong in the head. You know what I'm saying? They have experiences, they have trauma, they went through a lot of things, right? And they are not willing to work on themselves. Now they want to take their dysfunction and want to convince you that their dysfunction is now supposed to function in your life, even though you are the one who is functional correctly. But they have to change, they have to grow. People have to grow and change, they have to adapt. And the desire should not be, let me be who I want to be and I have to be happy. The desire should be, how can we make this relationship happy? How can we both be happy in this? And egotism would not help it. Jealousy will not help. You know, selfishness will not help 100%. So the question is, what can we do to make things better, to develop our character development, and both sides, not just men but also women, right? That also indicates listening. Okay, so now he goes on to say, now if we put bits into the horse mouth to make them obey us, we guide the whole body as well. And look at the ships, even though they are so large and they're driven by strong winds, they are still directed by a very small rudder, wherever the impulse of the helmsman determines, right? 5. In the same sense, the tongue is a small part of the body, yet it boasts of great things. See, by comparison, how great a forest is and set on fire by a small spark. And the tongue is, in the sense, a fire, a very world of injustice and unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members as that which contaminates the entire body. Oi, contaminates. That's what I said. The tongue is what contaminated an entire body. So who have you uncontaminated? Maybe you've contaminated yourself. Yeah, contaminated. You know what contaminated? Contaminated is, you see, mold. Yeah, mold is in your bread. I know, mold on your bread, and you're trying to cut a little bit off and then you eat the rest. No, the whole bread loaf is contaminated with the bacteria of the mold. Even if you see that little mold on the bread, the whole bread is now, you cannot cut it because it has already been contaminated. That's what it is. Contaminated. That means you need to be isolated. You need to be quarantined. Right? So if the coronavirus, makes us to quarantine, because now we have been contaminated with the coronavirus, and I have to quarantine because if I now touch another person, he has been now contaminated with the coronavirus, and now he has received the virus, and now that person is going to be sick. So if the coronavirus leads us to contaminate and leads us to isolation, how much more should us go into isolation if we don't know how to communicate and talk correctly? The isolation process is a process that this contamination, that we can get it in check, and that we can become pure, and that we can become whole before we go out to society. So now there's a lot of people who have been contaminated with bitterness, contaminated with anger, contaminated with unforgiveness, contaminated with perversion, contaminated with all kinds of things which are not suitable for the other person you are with. And now you have not isolated yourself. In fact, you have put yourself out there, and now you contaminate other people because you use your tongue to contaminate your body, another person's body. So the tongue is so powerful that we can bring life. So I love the Bible, what the scripture says. It says it's like it contaminates the whole body. So if the tongue, if what we speak, if I say I love you, if I say you're fantastic, if I say you're fantastic, if I say you're amazing, if I say you're so wonderful, if I say, you know what, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. These are words of encouragement. We don't want to listen to people who are negative. We also don't want to listen to who always bring us down. But we'll listen to people who will give us constructive criticism to help us to grow. And we listen to people who encourages us to push forward. Yeah, that's the reason. So the thing is, verse 6, and the tongue is in a sense a fire, a very word of injustice and unrighteousness, right? So there's a lot of injustice, unrighteousness in our tongue, right? The tongue is a set among members as that which contaminates the entire body and sets on fire the course of your life, the circle of men. So it sets on fire the course of your life. Oh my days. Do you know me that the tongue sets on fire the course of your life? If you grew up and they have criticized you, and some people have called you stupid and all kinds of stuff, right? That means as has set the course of your life. If a man or if a policeman or if a teacher or whatever has encouraged you, it could have set the course of your life. If you did like some music and someone says, "Well, your fantastic voice," just that sentence alone, it has set the course of our life. So you can see that the tongue, that when we speak and when we say certain things, it will help us. So now why is it important? Because Samantha Lee now said that she was listening to her attorney and to people who didn't have the best interest for her in marriage. So now these people spoke to her ears and they have contaminated her body. And when her body was contaminated, she went out and took the children away and took the marriage away and decided to divorce because the contaminated has happened and she has been contaminated from head to toe because of listening to voices and because people spoke to her. So you can see that the Bible is right. When you listen to certain people and your word is on fire, because the Bible is full of evil, injustice, and unrighteousness. The person was not interested in Samantha's well-being. The person was not interested in the well-being of the relationship. The person was not interested in any of that, but the person was interested in contaminating them with their own bitterness, with their own ideas, just because they feel a certain type of way. He says it contaminates the entire body and sets on fire the course of life. So it set on fire the course of life. Now she took it and the divorce has happened. Now to the extent that she says she has regretted it and says, "I wish I would have done different." You all have seen the clip already. Before, like, you know what I'm saying? It has contaminated her body by listening to somebody who has not the interest for her. Anyways, we go into that later. 7, for every species of beasts and birds, of reptiles and sea creatures is tamed and has been tamed by human race. Everything can be tamed. You tame it. But no one can tame the human tongue. It is restless evil, undisciplined, unstable, full of deadly poison. The tongue is full of deadly poison, unstable. So how do I know? People who are in depression, they always use the tongue because they speak to themselves and they tell themselves how useless they are, how much they don't have anything to offer. That's what they do. And why are they doing this? Because the tongue is undisciplined, unstable, full of deadly poison. So it's also important how you speak and who is speaking to you. Okay? That is what the tongue does. That's what the tongue does, full of deadly poison. Yeah? With it we bless our Lord the Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the likeness of God. No. There's an abomination unto the Lord. Yeah? So, that is the situation we just watched. Okay? Take away. Be careful who you're listening to. God's desire is not for you to have a divorce. God's desire is not for you to have a divorce. And you need to understand when the person spoke to you, and even the conversations you're having, are these conversations of life or conversation of deadly poison? Have you been contaminated to believe something you don't want to believe? So now if you go back to media, the media, everybody say, oh, go divorce, break up. It is the voices we're hearing. So we have been brainwashed from all sides to believe all kinds of things. But the question is, what is it, what you want, and what is the right thing to do? Is it right for you to break a person's heart? Is it right for you to leave and leave yourself heartbroken? Is it right for you to know that the decision you're making can destroy an entire family? Maybe your family, another person's family? Should you not take more consideration instead of just being fully emotionally and fully immersed with love, having stupid standards, but not standards of godliness? So what I want to say is, please be careful and don't be swayed away, and don't let the emotion take charge. Not only that she said that she was unhappy or she listened to other people, she said she was very emotional. Over and out. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.